Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Of course, it's the only subject in the air almost. June 12th, the president, PMB, and June 12th. Exhilarating news to some, and what shall we say, depressing news to others. That's the way it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. There have been all sorts of reactions, but it's perhaps not right to sort of guess who is in the majority. But there you are. The public space has been quite boisterous with comment, and we shall continue looking at it. In fact, there was a lovely headline I saw, I think it was in the Vanguard, masterstroke or mischief was one of their headlines. So that generally is the theme. Okay, to sort of explore this, and of course with you as well, we certainly want to hear what you want to say about this. There's hardly anything new to add. Every Nigeria went through the pains of the freest election in this country being annulled just before it was it could have been announced. And so now that we have the situation that we have on our hands, another cliche I've heard is that there's no wrong time to do the right thing. That's not mine. I just swiped that out of somebody. However, my guest this morning, Malaki Ugumadu, lawyer and president of the CDHR, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Thanks as always for coming on.
Thank you for the opportunity again.
And our dear friend Alhaji Hassan Abdul Aziz Sani, opinion molder and a commentator, commentator on the polity. Thank you very much as well for coming on, Alhaji.
Good morning, Mr. Yori, and good morning, Nigerians.
Indeed. As I said, exhilarating news to some, confusing, if not debilitating news to others. Yesterday on our station, on one of our programs, our early morning program, Dr. Ado, of the PDP, had explained quite clearly why he was not impressed by all of this, and he thought that if you were to summarize everything that he said, it was mischievous. Mr. President had never shown that he had any particular position on June 12th, and now seeking to make political capital out of it, he thought was less than statesman-like. Your impression, Malaki?
I didn't have the privilege of watching the gentleman who spoke yesterday. However, to hear that he is in the political class, therefore assists me in profiling what probably must have informed his position. The one that is important to me is the one that concerns Nigeria and Nigerians. And to what extent are we able to situate the development of this declaration within the context of our own history? June 12th was a historical fact. The facts and circumstances that attended June 12th is also a documented fact. What Nigerians did not benefit from is the impact, the effect of that exercise, because it was not allowed.
It was truncated.
It was truncated. It was aborted.
Aborted. After the baby had been born, some have added.
Certainly. And then threw the country into a very serious tumult that cost not just property, but a lot of lives.
That's right.
I recall that about that time I was in the university, and we had also resolved on what to do to join forces with progressive forces in the country. And we were equally arrested, far away in the east. Our intention was to also declare the State House of Assembly symbolically. And we were swept in by the SSS, and I won't forget that. So, come to think of it, I have made the point that if these are historical facts, and if we have now realized as a nation, no less the fact that it was a pronouncement by Mr. President, then we must also allow it to stay in order to guide the history of this country.
Indeed.
No one wishes away the fact that June 12 was a historical fact. No one can discountenance the fact that so many lives were lost in the bid to actualize June 12. As a matter of fact, it became a struggle and then metamorphosed into a movement. Even while in the university, when I came out in 1998, while working in the CDHR as a research officer, I was elected as the National Deputy Secretary of JACON, led by Chief Ganifa Emi. One of our principal campaign was the validation of June 12th.
Indeed.
So, except for people who were at the periphery of the struggle, or who didn't pay the price, as it were, it's easy and convenient for you to begin to toy with these historical facts. And this is where I think we must focus on.
Thank you very much. Alhaji, June 12th is an open sore that has now been addressed. Since the election, the epoch election in '93, there have been successive administrations that have had the opportunity, every opportunity, to address it. Successively, they didn't. They didn't want to. Now, President Buhari has taken the bull by the horns and done what many consider to be the right thing, even though there are those who, who differ. Give me your impressions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yori. You see, for and against, it reminds me of a man called Albert Einstein. In one of his quotations, that said, a country is not dangerous because of those who do harm, but because of those who saw it without doing anything. Mr. President...
It's almost like the other quote of the man died.
You know what? The Mr. President saw the harm, and he was brave enough to do something about it. June 12th is a reality. It's a reality. For you to deny that there was no June 12th is more likely to belonging to either three groups. Either you decided in your own myopic way to ignore the reality around you, or you decided in your own way to be sycophantic. And I'm very sorry, if you are elderly, you must be suffering from Alzheimer, the loss of memory.
Oh dear. Okay.
I was part of June 12th because I happened to be a presiding officer. I conducted the election. So I'm in a position to tell you the reaction of people to June 12th. I was a presiding officer in Funtua local government. I saw the way people voted. In my polling booth, Chief MQ Abiola carried the day. So in other polling booths in my locality and all over the state. In northern Nigeria, Chief MQ Abiola defeated Bashir Tufa. This is the first time in Nigeria's history where people voted out primordial sentiment. People voted for quality.
Indeed.
People voted.
We purposely left it out because it is so well known. It was a Muslim ticket. People didn't bother about that at all.
You know what really happened? What really happened is this.
We're leaving all of this out because it is well known already.
It's well known to all of us. People wanted change.
Indeed.
And people voted for change. But unfortunately, the government of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida annulled the election, considered to be the freest and fairest election so far. But the irony of it, recently, I saw the same PDP people awarding him for a job well done. Then my reaction was this: awarding you for what? For destroying the unity of the country? For not allowing the majority to have their ways? For making people to go back to the archives of sentiment? Or for retarding the entire development of the country? No.
When, Malaki, as we said, we've got to take all shades of opinion on this because that's what we do here. The fact that some people are trying to bring some legal aspects to the whole thing. Legalistic is what I should say, really, aspects to the whole thing. Oh, Mr. President can't, unilaterally do this. There are laws that have already entrenched May 29 as our Democracy Day, which is obnoxious to many, but they just managed because they couldn't do anything about it. That all of these things are coming out. Does it surprise you that what is, yeah, there are those who have called it a masterstroke, but forget all those terminologies for now. A wound, a national wound, a weeping wound has been addressed. And people are saying, why are you putting a bandage on it? Why are you now beginning to, lead towards healing of this country? Does that surprise you?
No, certainly it doesn't surprise me. It merely exposes the depth of the situation that we found ourselves, well, the poverty of the situation that we found ourselves. Because in a sense, you would have thought that a brave act is a brave act.
And it
a
is.
noble
Act is a noble
a noble act is a noble act. I heard you say, and I concur, that there are there's no bad time for doing the right thing. However, we're in election years,
Yes.
or mood.
Yes, yes.
And then the dominant political parties are digging in, taking advantage of every move, however pious, to discredit the other, if only to undermine them. Unfortunately, our politics have been degraded to that level. What would have made sense to a number of us is if you're able to profile a better suggestions and strategies of bringing about a better Nigerian, and not to pick on decisions taken and all that. So let's face it as it is. I think it is interesting that the debate is even playing out. That way, the younger generation will be better informed, first as to what happened,
Yes.
secondly as to the propriety of what happened, and thirdly, may not be denied the opportunity of having history as it is.
And I would add respectfully, Malaki, fourthly, to those young people that you're talking about, the kind of people that make up Nigeria.
Exactly.
The kind of people that we are.
Because the country has suffered under the weight of very unpatriotic Nigerians. People who have deliberately, perhaps oblivious of the fact that if not their immediate children, their generations next to come will find themselves to deal with the kind of crisis that they are creating. Look, people who
And not understand the background.
People who were,
of it.
there were moments in that 1993 when people ran away from their homes, not knowing where they were running to. In the entire East, they call it also Abiola. That is Abiola's race. People were carrying their bags and baggages on their head, trekking as far as Mowe up to away from Lagos, under the fear that the real war has started. We in the struggle, I participated in virtually all the protests, saw the mowing down of Nigerians as those protests progressed. People were incarcerated, and I'm happy, and I joined the family of late Chief Gani Fawemi to celebrate a day like this for the symbolism of it. It was never thought that such a day will be recognized. The recognition of that day is most important because of what it represented. June 12 was about a principle. It spoke to the need for the respect of the sovereignty, the sovereign will of the people. That was what happened.
Indeed. Now a leader has come, President Muhammadu Buhari, who, any way you want to look at it, has demonstrated courage. You expect that of a soldier anyway. You expect courage. But we have had soldiers who were former soldiers, Mr. President is also a former soldier, that have, for some reason, not stepped up to that courage plate for whatever reason. Now President Buhari says, I'm imputing in his action. What is right and has to be said. Is this something that we should sort of maybe gloss over, not really dwell on in the interest of letting sleeping dogs lie, because President Buhari has demonstrated courage in doing that which his predecessors in Aso Rock have felt when they were not able to do, or for whatever reason did not want to do. You remember famously the "he's not a messiah" quote.
Is there anything wrong in saying the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It takes courage.
Thank you. You see, leadership is about doing the right thing.
One moment, sir. One moment, sir. I'm going to come right back to you. Because of the nature of today's topic, let's hear from what people are saying. Benga in Abuja, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, the guest there.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Benga.
Mr. Yori, this issue of June 12 have brought up a vital part of our history that has been taken to the background or relegated to the background. Anybody under the age of 40 will never believe that there was a time in Nigeria people voted by standing at the back on a line for a candidate and they were counted openly. If you look at our election now, when you voted secretly, you look as if your life is not threat. There was a time I witnessed it, I saw it happen, that people kill, NRC, SDP kill, and they counted them openly and all over Nigeria. People who contested, 3 of them were Muslim. Only the vice president of TOFA was from the south and was a Christian. Could they believe that it could happen? It could happen. That's the reason why anybody that is against this move is a mischief maker, does not love the unity of this country. This is the beginning of a healing process for Nigeria. For people to know that if you have been wrongly, if you have been wounded before, if you have been battered before, there's a hope that one day somebody will remember you and right the wrong of the past.
Indeed.
And the message is that there's hope for Nigeria.
Indeed.
Forget about what anybody can say. Wale has taken the right step, and the healing process has started.
Thank you.
It has made us know that there is hope for this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. To return to you, Alhaji, the rekindling of hope, as Benga has put it, the rekindling of hope. And we're talking about the courage of leadership. It's one thing to get into office. It's another thing, quite frankly, to have the balls required in leadership. And you were talking about the right thing, the whole truth, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Is there anything wrong in that?
Apart from the fact that it takes courage.
Good. It takes courage to do that. And it takes courage to lead. But you can decide to be sycophantic. You can decide to look elsewhere, denying yourself the right of doing the needful.
So you might have courage, but still go down these rules that you're talking about because of your mischief.
Yes. You see, leadership is about being right, not being nice. And we have to be very, very careful when we are trying to combine being nice with leadership. You see, somebody is setting a pace now.
Yes.
Somebody failed in his 8 years of rulership. He refused to do the needful. You can see the reaction now, even from PDP. They, almost 60 years of their rulership, you understand, it was much more geared towards, suppressing the truth. You understand?
Yes.
Suppressing the reality.
Yes.
You understand? And now, somebody just came out, from the blues and just decided to do the needful, and they were taken by surprise.
Indeed. Well, one moment, sir. Salami in Agbara, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. Please, I just have a little contribution to the discussion that is ongoing. What Buhari did, I think I have a little different idea about it. Calling June 12 a democracy day, I don't think is correct. It's totally correct. June 12 is supposed to be seen as the dark day for Nigeria, because it was the day that Nigeria decided to elect a leader that will have changed the story of this country. But the then dictator decided to perfect that process, which threw us backward to where we are today. I believe the best thing that we have done have been done is for President Buhari to honor his MKO Abiola for the struggle and make June 12 as a dark day for the nation and not a democracy day. What we try to do now is like what it is said by law of the public policy process. If you give them a title and get them involved, what we do directly to is to seek the faith of the Westerners so that the 2019 that we are calling for creating a free planification equality with ideas. The not doing to this faith is wrong.
Yes.
It is known as that day for Nigeria,
Okay.
not democracy.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Malaki, to come to you, let's look at some of the things that the naysayers are saying, among which are the fact that Mr. President can't act unilaterally, as they put it. This is not backed by law, but May 29 was backed by law. Quite frankly, it goes on ad nauseum, but give me your thoughts, especially that whole legalistic matter.
Well, it's good to return to that because it's at the heart of the controversy. Recall that my Lord, Honorary Justice Begori, retired, took the first salvo.
Yes.
And was reported to have said that that decision or pronouncement was illegal, essentially because it did not have the backing
Yes.
of the National Honors Act.
Yes.
But I think that those who reported him also did not do the full work because no section of that particular law was provided in support of that statement, as far as the statements we have read are concerned. Because as lawyers, that would have availed us sufficient opportunity to profile the statement and then situate it within the context of the law to understand the propriety or otherwise of it. But by and large, what we have done is also to look at the same law that is in issue and find that the president has more than sufficient powers to make the pronouncement that he has made. Indeed, I think that the confusion partly arose from the fact that people were concentrating more on the subsidiary legislation, which is pursuant to the main National Honors Act. There is a subsidiary legislation that wrote, if you went back to the main law, which is the National Honors Act, you will find that the president has unfettered powers to make such pronouncement by way of the pronouncement, insisting that the power to make that award rests squarely with the president. And it goes on, even in subsection 3 of the same act, to say that the president even has the power to reverse the pronouncements that he has made in the event that he finds out that those appointments or awards are inappropriate. And therefore,
I wonder, is there also is it that the National Awards Committee that they are
National Honors Act,
that one, are they actually recommending to the president?
No.
Or is it that once they have said it is, nobody has any opportunity to
what the law says, and if you allow me, I read it out clearly to if you allow me.
Could I come back to it, please, because I don't want to lose Egu, who is called in from Jos.
Very well.
Good morning, sir. Egu in Jos.
Hello, morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much, and to you. Yes, thank you to our men too to speak in there. Okay, my point is this. I don't want Nigerians to go and slaughter Babangida because he did not take a unilateral decision. The annulment of June 12 was a collective decision of Northerners, and mainly from the military. When Abacha took over power, even Jack Onde, Ebenezer Babatope, Babagana Kigibe, and all of them, they went and took even Buhari took up job from Abacha. So nobody should keep Babangida. I raise my case.
Thank you. Thank you very much for calling in. Would you like to, comment?
Mr. Ugu, you are Mr. Egu, you are entitled to opinion. Look, in every setting, in the democratic settings, we always have this slogan. The majority always have their ways, while the minority will have their say. You are having your say. Thank you very much, Mr. Ugu.
Okay, Malaki, let me return to, you wanted to comment on an aspect of the law that might help clarify this whole matter.
So I was specifically referring to Section 1, Subsection 1 of the National Honors Act, which is the principal legislation, that makes provision for all of this. It says that the president shall have the power by an award, that's the instrument of that pronouncement, to determine, the category of award of honor to be given to people, deserving persons. And I said that even under subsection 3 of that principal legislation, the president also reserved the right in deserving circumstances.
Is it going to be possible
to have a Muslim
ticket again? Because we are going back to the history now,
where
Muslim ticket worked. But now, is it possible? It's a question.
So, in other words, has our cohesion become better, or has it weakened since then?
I think that is the reason why those who are impressed by what has happened are continuing to re-emphasize the symbolic essence of what has happened. To say that in that era, just as it has not happened again, because we knew how the nominations for running mates have almost torn parties apart, because you need the religious balancing to be able to proceed. But then, it didn't matter. What mattered then was the unity of this country and the capacity to deliver on democratic practices.
And it's an ideal that we are still chasing till today.
Those principles,
we are chasing it. Whether we'll be able to catch it is left to history.
The way we achieved it then, if we had been allowed to consolidate on that, perhaps no person would have been bothered about zoning in their respective political agenda now. I make the point that, look, as far as this country is concerned, at every turn and curve, when we have the opportunity to situate issues properly, we need to seize those moments.
Okay, one moment, please. Femi in Ikorodu, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you, sir.
And the gentleman in the studio, please.
Sure.
I just want to bring us back to memory lane. Our past president, Obasanjo, if you remember, you recall, the reason why he became president was because he was they compensated the the Southwest people for MKO's, what happened to MKO. That was why even AD, all the parties unilaterally almost considered to him so that they could make up for whatever IBP did. Against MKO Abiola.
Yes, but as I remember it, AD declined to support Obasanjo, as I remember it.
When he was there. Thank you for giving me the privilege to make this contribution.
No, Yori, I think the point he's making is also a historical fact. The mood of the country then was that this section, the southwest section of the country, from where Chief MKO Abiola came, notwithstanding that he won the election in all parts of the country, including where my brother supervised.
Yes.
Was that, and the Southwest was politically sufficiently calibrated and positioned in such a way that the two dominant party, AD and PDP, produced two presidential candidates from Southwest, Chief Olufalaye and Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, such that either way it went, the presidency will still remain in the Southwest as a huge compensation. And that was what happened. So those are historical facts. To add to that is to insist that, look, the fact of June 12th and what happened had already been documented. Before now, Humphrey Nwosu had come out with his own pronouncement that it was MKO Abiola that won the election, even if he didn't have the courage, as we expected, that he came out and declared the election.
See it through.
Yes.
The naysayers, that's what I'm calling them, I don't want to call them, that don't see this, the way, those who are jubilating are seeing it, are saying that there's a cabal around Mr. President that has influenced all of this. Well, on the one hand, he acted unilaterally. On the other hand, there's a cabal. I don't know what kind of a cabal. So it must have been when he was consulting among his party. I don't know. We can only guess. Tinubu, for instance, remember that very, very early, he had renamed Oregun, the old Oregun Road, he had renamed it Kudirat Way, to commemorate Abiola's wife being murdered on that very road. Okay, I'm hearing that Benga in Ejibo wants to come in. Good morning, Benga.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Yes, it's like they say it's a case. But truly, I want to commend President Muhammadu Buhari, who has done the right thing. Like Malaki and Alhaji Azana said, there is no wrong time for doing what is right. And I think this would serve as a lesson of President, the former head of state, Ibrahim Babangida. And that was what destroyed him, even not today. He is of no historical value because of that singular act. Like the other caller said that, no, there are many that took the decision. And who was the leader? He had the courage. He was even a friend to MK Abiola. If he had the courage, he should have gone ahead. I also want to salute the courage of the NEC chairman there, Professor Humphrey Nwosu. I think he also deserves to be honored because they asked them to stop. And the man, in fact, he started from he was announcing results, and eventually everybody knew, even though they then started by using some other group and cause to halt the election results. But I want to thank the president, and I think it is the right thing.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I was saying, Alhaji, before I had to interrupt myself because of that call, from the very beginning of the June 12 debacle, going back to Tinubu's administration in Lagos, they had done what they had done in honor. But now Mr. President has put a national voice on all of this, taking it to every aspect of everywhere in the country. And feedback that is coming in is people are saying, hallelujah, the right thing has been done. There's still a lot of problems, but at least the right thing has been done in this particular case. So there's no way you can wish away the fact that Lagos, for instance, Lagos on its own, Lagos State, for example, on its own, I believe, I don't know if it's the only one, but
Ogun State, Lagos.
Yes, in the South, they have made June 12 a public holiday. Now it is going to extend itself into a national holiday, much to the consternation of some.
You know, power belongs to the people, ordained by God, belongs to the people, in the sense that when you look at the history of June 12, there was intrigues, a lot of intrigues played out. It's a national issue, but the propaganda machinery of that time succeeded in boxing the June 12 to be the exclusive issue of Southwest. What an irony, in the sense that people that voted for Abiola most are from the northern Nigeria. But because of the government that annulled June 12 election wanted to have their ways, they succeeded in exclusively leaving the June 12 issue to Western Nigeria. But as the time goes on, we are talking history now.
Yes.
They realize that, look, no matter what, you can only kill the body. You cannot kill the soul. The military, let us give kudos to General Abdulsalam Abubakar when he came in, because the election was supervised by his administration. By making sure that, look, both party A and B candidates are from the Southwest. Whether you like it, vote for BDP. You like vote for AMPP. You are voting for a Yoruba man. Why is this? Is because he saw the country, going astray. He saw the country that was once united. People are now holding on to their ancestral home, which is very, very bad to any form of development in the country.
Indeed. One
he
moment,
did that. Let us give kudos to him also.
Indeed. Yakub in Dokwemo, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Shikari. And good morning to Mr. Azan, Alaji Hassan, and Mr. Balak.
Good morning.
Yeah, you see, Shikari, whether we like it or not, my own belief is this. There's nothing paying you than when you know the right thing to do, and then you fail to do it, and then you are still alive. Somebody come from nowhere, somebody that nobody have ever expected that would do the right thing for such thing. And then you are alive, and then the person gives you that blow, and then he did the right thing. So everything it will be paying you more than ever. See, you will never forget it, or you would live this life. I think you know what I'm talking about now.
Yes.
Because I don't want to mention this. I was saying that if I participated in that election, I was a delegate. I followed the INEC officer that is counting out the village then, one by one. And then the election finished in no time. And then everybody was jubilating. The loser and the winner in that my own locality there, we are all happy. And then at the end of the day, the election was annulled.
Yes.
Let me tell you this, it is unfortunately that yesterday, I watched one of the controversial senators beginning to tell Nigerian citizens that you are a dead person. He's quoting a law that is irrelevant to the situation on ground. That the MK Moshood Kashimawo Alawale Abiola does not supposed to take that accolade because he was no more. He's a dead person. How could you say that as a senator?
All right then. Thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate your call. Yakub. Sorry for that because I want to get as much sort of opinion as possible. Malaki, again, starting off the way Yakub started off, whether you like it or not, Buhari has written his name into the fabric of Nigeria's history, and in particular, you won't be able to take off June 12 and the wrong that it was, the national wrong that it was, whether you like it or not, whether you want to call it mischief or masterstroke. Buhari has now added his name to the whole, to conversation.
It's about 25 years now.
In the making.
Since that incident. And you also will appreciate that time has mediated through all of this. But for the participants, those who witnessed it, just like those who witnessed the Civil War, when they tell the story about the Civil War, you get it as graphic and better off than those of us who were not even born then could ever tell. It's the same thing with June 12.
Indeed. So the persistence, coming to you, Alhaji, the persistence of the Nigerian voice, of the Nigerian people that cannot be stifled. He just said it's 25 years in the making. But we never kept quiet about this injustice. You called it intrigue. There's a sense in which insincerity, sometimes they use intrigue when they want to be polite and don't want to say insincerity, insincere people that have been running our affairs.
You know what? You see, there are certain words that are associated with fraud.
Let me, I'm going to come back to you, sir. Bobby in Jos, good morning. Bobby?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sincerely, I would like to congratulate the President for declaring June 12 as Democracy Day. It's something that has actually been awaited from Nigerians for a long time. But I'd want to say one thing concerning the issues that is going behind this declaration. That this particular time of declaring this thing should have been done longer before now, even with the present administration. That while Buhari came into power in 2015, this should have been done. But he couldn't do that until now that he's looking for, re-election in 2019. He is now pronouncing this in order to get, either the votes of the Westerners, let me just say it that way, because we believe Abiola is actually from that side. But away from that, I would want to ask a particular question. Why is 1993 election being seen as the most fairest election? Does that mean that
the most free and fair
conducted in
Nigeria,
in the country, was not fair? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in as well. Let me come back to you, Alhaji, where I sort of interrupted you. Insincerity in leadership being called, intrigues. The fact that we've spoken about courage in leadership, now sincerity as well.
Yes. Let me respond to Bobby from Jos.
Okay.
You see, why people, applaud the June 12th election as the freest and fairest election so far in the Nigerian history is because it was the first election that crossed across all the primordial sentiments. Everybody was happy. People voted with alacrity.
Nobody cared that Abiola was a Yoruba man. Nobody cared that it was a Muslim ticket.
For Nigeria. In the north, in the west, in the east, in the middle belt, everybody, people were happy. They voted, and they wanted this man to be their president. That was why even the person that annulled the election came out recently to say that he is happy he conducted the freest and fairest election so far. So that is the issue. Nigerians were happy.
Which was very, very funny.
Very funny.
Reverend Dominic, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chief Yori. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good morning, Barrister Malaki.
Good morning, Dominic.
Good morning, the Red Cap Chief in the studio.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic.
Yori, for the first time, my president have done something that has gone well and gone down with me. I fought for APC to come into power, but you know my stand. But today, he has put some smile in my heart and my spirit, and put some people who criticize us wrong. But let me say this, Yori. If tariffs in a land that lack courageous men, please, if anybody is close to Dino Malaya, you should tell him he should not joke for everything in this nation. June 12th is the soul and the heart of the unity of Nigeria. June 12th has no color of tribe or tongue. June 12th represents the emancipation and the destruction of the weak and the destruction of the progress of this nation. Every meaningful Nigeria should not comment in anything politically. But Dino Malaya, his statement yesterday, I was disappointed about that young man. I want to align myself with Yakubu. He has spoken my mind. And I said, may President Buhari keep taking a decision like this till the end of the year. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Malaki, the other matter about that Bobby brought up, that, look, why is it now? He could have done it on day one. In other words, it was a calculated move so that he could get political advantage out of it. So what?
Even the annulment of the election itself was a political move. And please, Nigerians should be reminded that from that moment to yesterday, I don't know about tomorrow, President Babangida has consistently said that he takes responsibility for that. That has consistently remained his assertion.
He also has said in the past that when the time is right, he will say all. He is not saying all now. Then people will see that it was a lot more complicated than all of that.
Babangida should remember that he hasn't got the luxury of that time. For a nation that came to the precipice and came very close to disintegration on account of his indiscretion, and if you may hear, insincerity. So for as long as he toys with himself and labors with his conscience as to the time appropriate or otherwise when he will have to tell the Nigerians the truth about June 12, for that long, we leave him with his conscience. Every man has got a sense of judgment based on his conscience.
Indeed.
And Babangida is battling with his own conscience.
Okay, Ola in Lugbe, I believe it is, in Abuja. Good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
And I say good morning to the guests in the studio also.
Good morning.
Please go ahead.
Yes, you see, as an adult, I can remember the number of times I cried profusely like a baby in my life. And one of those times was when Mandela was pronounced dead in detention. Now, that is to give you the kind of...
just as Abdul Salami was about to reportedly release him.
Yes. You see, and that is to place the kind of... I mean, that is to emphasize the kind of opinion I placed on what happened to Abdullah before he died and after he died, and also on the June 12 election annulment. Having said that, I want to take exception to the people who kept on telling us that there is no wrong time to do a right thing. I don't think I'm going to completely agree with that. And it's just like you saying, you know, it is not wrong for somebody to go to primary school at the age of 71 when he knows he knows I've gone to primary school when he was 5 or 6 and decided to go to school at 71. Or what benefit is it going to be to him?
All right then.
So he's doing something. He's doing something that is right.
All right.
At the long term. Having said that, let me quickly conclude on this. Now, the question is to be asked. Why is Mr. President suddenly waking up to give credence to this June 12th after 3 years in government?
Okay.
Is it not a kind of reaction to the negative posture Babangida and Obasanjo gave to his administration? If Mr. President, after telling how we do, I mean, we do two gentlemen, would they have come out to give this recognition?
All right then.
Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves.
Okay.
I don't want to believe Mr. President is very sincere, but in a nutshell, let's give it to him as a president. At least it's going to be one of the legacies he's going to leave behind in 2019 when he's in office.
Okay, good morning, and thank you very much. As to the analogy, of going to primary school at the age of 25, well, it's okay, but surely you are aware of people who graduate at the age of 75, for example, but again, I understand what you're saying. Going back to this whole matter about he deployed, the president deployed this particular measure, this particular thing now. Well, look, politicians are strategic people. They know what they're doing. So I don't understand. And would you like to comment on that whole matter about one of the reasons why this is a suspect move is that it's calculated to aid him in his further political quest? And as I said, when I put the question to Malaki, so what?
I listen attentively to a lot of people while making their comments since yesterday. A lot of them came to say that, why now?
Yes.
Then my response was, why not? Because it's much more better to be late than to be delayed. There's nothing wrong in doing that.
Better late than never.
Yes. Do you know what's happening? It seems people decided to be ignorant of how this government started. This government started on a controversial stand. First of all, we started with pardon. We came to Avengers. President was ill, abroad. We are saying this, we are saying that. The president is dead, president is alive, this is and that. You understand? The same president came back now. You understand? On his solid footing to do the right thing. And we are now saying it is late.
Okay. Jude in Ikeja, I got to squeeze you in. Good morning.
Good morning, Uncle.
Thank you for calling, sir.
Thank you, sir. I just want to ask one simple question. Let's just be sincere to ourselves. The question I'm going to ask is this. Had it been MK Abiola is still alive as of today and was denied to become president, then Buhari now want to honor him while he's still alive without title. Will he accept it from Buhari? That's one question. Had he been Gani is still alive and is being honored without title, knowing fully well that he is a lawyer, he stands on the Constitution, and he knows how many people that have died from January to date by henchmen and other people. Will he be proud to accept that honor from Buhari?
Thank you very much for your question. Thank you very much. Is the premise of the question that he poses right?
With respect to the Chief Gani Fawehinmi aspect of it,
yes,
you will recall that Chief, like Chinua Achebe, had in the past rejected national honors by previous governments and situated it within the premise that government and governance was at its lowest ebb. They did that. But we listened to the first son of Chief Gani Fawehinmi,
yes,
responding to the same question only yesterday, to say that it was one of the wishes of his late father, which, by the way, captured a very large portion of the progressive community that he's represented over, as to the validation of June 12. Mm-hmm. So if his honor is associated with that, then there won't be any question, much more than what the son, who was with him up to the point of death, had re-echoed. Okay. And that's as far as I can go.
Okay, I've run out of time, but Alhaji, I just got to come back to you on this whole question of sincerity, of leaders in office, aka intrigue. Do you think this is a new vista for leadership in Nigeria, courageous leadership, sincere leadership, truthful leadership, as opposed to that which is called political leadership, which also includes insincerity and outright lies?
Yes. The issue about leadership is this, about General Muhammadu Buhari is this. You see, people came to lead because they said, if you are leading and nobody is following, you are just taking a walk. But one thing is very clear here. You see, a lot of people are taking a clue from him, from being brave, for being sincere, for being down to earth, for speaking the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And we're expecting future leadership.
I've got to leave it
there.
My
final point.
Maybe 15 seconds.
If the intrigues
yes,
is to resonate in the mind of people as to the right things to be done, let the intrigue continue. But I urge the president to go further. Declare MK Abiola as the president of Nigeria, and we'll take it up from there.
Thank you very much, Malaki Ugumadu, National President, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. And also, sincere thanks to you as well. What is the opposite? No intrigue thanks. Sincere thanks to you, Alhaji Hassan Abdulaziz Sani, opinion molder and communications professional. That's our program for today. We'll be back, God willing, with a fresh edition on Monday, and we're going to continue with this theme because it's important enough. It's a watershed. Just as June 12 was a watershed, President Muhammadu Buhari has brought about another watershed. Do have a great weekend. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.